Welcome to the Dad Lawyer. This is a program produced by the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm in conjunction with ActonTV. I'm Amanda Mulhall. I am standing in today for David Feeks, the owner of the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm. I myself am an associate at the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm in Acton. So the Dad Lawyer is a program for parents with young children and highlights the legal and financial issues that are specific to parents and growing families in the Acton and surrounding communities. Today we're veering from the norm a little bit, and we have with us today Paul Hemphill, a college admission consultant from Planning for College. Paul, welcome.
Well, it's great to be here, Amanda. I can't believe I'm here and sitting in front of you. I can't wait for this interview to begin.
Well, it's about you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
No, I don't want to do that. I've been a college planning strategist for the last 16 years. And before that, I've always been in marketing and advertising, all my life. And before that, well, I had graduated from college, got a degree in philosophy, and I was given a full scholarship by President Richard M. Nixon to attend Vietnam. Not Vietnam University, I might add. And so I came home and I got into the marketing and advertising business, been doing it ever since, and I've marketed everything from rat poison to horror films to now I'm doing students. And I've been doing it for the last 16 years, having a ball at it, because these kids are just crazy, nuts, funny, and they just motivate me to work with them all the time. And just to give you a sample of my reputation with my students, I had a student 2 years ago invite me to her graduation party, big mistake. And she looked at her friends and says, "Hey guys, come on over here. I want you to meet somebody very special to me." And I thought, oh my God, she's going to introduce me to her girlfriends. And so they all walked over and she said, "I want you to meet Paul Hemphill. He's the oldest teenager that you'll ever meet in your lifetime." And so that's why I continue to do this, because these kids are really a lot of fun and they really energize me. Not that you've understood or got that impression.
Well, tell us a little bit about Planning for College, your business, and what you do and for kids who are trying to get into college.
Well, basically what happens is that parents will come to me and with the concern that the guidance counselor at the local high school can't give the time or the attention that their son needs or daughter needs, and they're very frustrated by the process, tearing their hair out. And the most common emotion throughout the college admissions process is stress. The parents are very stressed about this. And so, of course, my tagline on my business is helping you to reduce your stress. And so what happens is I just simply tell them that, what's really interesting is when a 16-year-old will say to me, "So, Mr. Hemphill, what is it exactly that you do?" And I will... And I had one student say to me, "Mr. Hemphill, could you do it in 30 seconds? And the father says to his daughter, "Mr. Hempill's going to be here for a while, so kind of cut him some slack, will you?" I said, No, I'm up for the challenge. So I said, "Now watch this. I want you to pretend your little brown box is going down the conveyor belt towards the admissions office. There's 5,000 little brown boxes in front of you, 5,000 little brown boxes behind you. And the reason why you're on the conveyor belt is because you qualify to get into that college. And the reason why you may not get into that college is because you look like everybody else. And the only way you're going to distinguish yourself from everybody else is that you're going to put a big red ribbon around your box. And I'm the guy that puts the ribbon around your box." And that's it. And she turns to her father and she says, "That was awesome." So, that's the way it is. Anyway, go ahead.
So is that a little bit of what is different that you offer too? I would say that's a little outside of the little brown box.
It is. I do offer something different, because people will say to me, "Well, what differentiates you from everybody else?" Unless, of course, if you haven't figured that out so far, you're not paying attention. Pay attention. Okay. Pay attention. What happens is I teach my kids how to market themselves. And so when a 16-year-old says, "Could you explain what that means?" I said, "Well, look, when you get up in the morning and what's the last thing you do before you leave the house?" And of course, they lie to me. You know, they say they get the chocolate bar or whatever they want to take to school. What they really do is stand in front of a mirror and make sure they really look good before they get on the bus, right? And I say, well, that's marketing, because you don't want to get to school and have everybody look at you and go, oh my God, you look terrible. You get the wrong dress on, or your colors don't match. You don't want to hear any of that, right? You just want to look good. Well, that's marketing, and that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. So what I will do with, and I say this to the parents, is that I will teach your child how to market themselves so they can get into their first choice college. And so when they learn that experience of how they got into their first choice college, when they go to apply for their first job, they'll get that first job. They'll get that second job, that third job. They'll get that first spouse, that second spouse. No, I don't want to go there. But the point here is, to me, it's not just about getting into college, test scores and grades. The students come to learn through me that life isn't about just test scores and grades. It's about forming and developing relationships, which is another thing that I do with my students. I teach them how to start and nourish relationships with someone in the admissions office of each of the colleges to which they are going to apply.
It's almost like they're getting their first college lesson before they even get there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So what prompted you to actually start your business and get into this type of thing?
I was really upset one day. I was in retirement mode. This is back about 17 years ago. And I was looking for something else to do with my life. I really enjoyed marketing, but I wanted to work with kids, but I didn't know under what capacity. So one day I happened to call the college where my firstborn was attending. He was a senior at college. And just to back up just a bit, before they went off to college, I went off to see a financial planner, and I asked him, what's this financial aid stuff all about? And he looked at my portfolio and he said, well, look, you make too much money, you have too many assets, you're never going to qualify for financial aid, just forget about it. Oh, okay, fine. Didn't like the answer, but I figured, okay, fine, this is what I have to do. So I'm writing out all these happy checks every month to the school for like $2,200, and I'm thinking, boy, I can't wait till this ends. So I'm a little frustrated one day, and I call the school, and this woman gets on the phone with a lot of attitude. The first thing she says to me is, according to our records here, I see on the screen, Mr. Number, you never filled out a FAFSA form, and that's the form that you fill out in order to qualify to get financial aid from Uncle Sam. And I asked her what she thought was the dumbest question she'd ever heard. I said, what's a FAFSA form? She said, you don't know what a FAFSA form is? What is the matter with you? You know, that kind of attitude. And so the thing that really busted my chops at the end of that conversation was she said, had you just filled out the FAFSA form, Mr. Hemphill, you could have saved yourself at least $20,000. I said, what? Really? Okay. And so I hung up, ran downstairs, and I said to my wife, you're not going to believe what I just, you know. And so she's listening to me, and as I keep telling the story, she's starting to smile. I said, what are you smiling for? She says, I think you found yourself in your career. I said, how do you mean? She says, think of all the parents out there who are going to make the same dumb mistakes that you made. Not we made. You made. Okay? And with your marketing expertise, just think of what you could do with the kids. I thought, whoa, wow, I married this girl for a reason. She's smart. You know? And so it's been great ever since.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what is the number one reason that people hire you? Or what's the thing they're looking for when they're talking to you?
Great question. In fact, that's the question that I asked when I sat down with them for the first time. I'll start right off by saying, why am I here?
Yeah.
Typically what happens is that most people don't come to me for the purpose of figuring out how much more financial aid they can get from the college, although that's an issue with virtually everybody. I mean, they don't talk about it much, but it is an issue. They'd like to save a dime here and there. But typically, one fellow said to me one time when I asked him, he says, I don't have you here to see what I can do about getting more financial aid. I don't think I'll qualify for it because I make too much money. And my concern is I don't want my daughter, who is very smart, who gets an $80,000 scholarship to the school that she thinks she wants to attend, and then about 6 or 7 weeks into the first semester, I get this phone call, and she says, hey, Dad, I hate it here. And there goes that $80,000 scholarship down the tubes because it's not transferable. And does the relationship with the daughter and the father going to change as a result of her coming home and having made that decision?
Sure.
Not a place they want to go. So they want to avoid all of that. And that's what I do, is that I make sure that those kids end up going to the right schools. When I say right schools, I mean school that fits exactly what they're looking for. I never get into brand names with my students. When I sit down with a family for the first time, one of the first questions I ask them is, are you into brand names, or are you into a place that's going to be a good fit for you? If I hear brand names, that conversation ends pretty quickly and gentlemanly, I might say. Okay? But so I just, I don't want to have to deal with parents who want to validate themselves through their kids by going to, let's say, their alma mater, which might be Princeton or Dartmouth or someplace.
Sure. So walk us through the rest of the process. You sit down with the kids, maybe their parents, or their parents there?
Yes, they are. They have to be. The very first thing I discuss with parents is that I'm going to take your child through a career counseling process. In other words, we're not going to be discussing college at all in the beginning of our relationship, because right now the statistic is staggering that more than 70%, that's 70, of college students are going to take not 4 years to graduate, but 5 and 6 years.
Wow.
Part of the reason is because they didn't know what to major in, and they changed their majors at least 3 times when they were there. And I always say to parents in a workshop, they think it's a dumb question. I'll say, does anybody know what the most expensive year of college is? So, of course, the guys, they think they're smart, inflation. It's the 4th year. No, it's the 5th year. What are you talking about? I tell them the stats. And I say the 5th year is the most expensive because in an article at the New York Times about 3 years ago, they indicated that the 5th year means you're going to send your kid back to school, which might be, let's say, $30,000 at UMass. That's a state school, not a private school. And then the year out of the workforce, you combine those two figures, and you got $68,000. Pretty expensive year, 5th year. That figure is 3 years old, so do the math.
Yeah.
So it's really critical that I get my students to get a sense as to what their career potential is, what direction it should go in, not destination, but a direction. So once we have that direction, I will ask the student, I use the Socratic method. I don't tell them what major they're going to go into. And I'll say to them, okay, so the direction that we're going here is in finance. You're very comfortable with that. That makes, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. I say, well, what college major do you think would work in finance? And they might say accounting or business, marketing. Perfect. They got it. So once we get to that conclusion, now it's up to me to find those colleges that have that major. So, of course, I always ask the student, geographically, where would you like to attend college? And they say, oh, someplace warm. Oh, you mean like southern Massachusetts, somewhere like that? No, and of course, the mothers, they're funny. The mothers are really funny. They freak out when I say, well, how would you like to go to school in Scotland? And of course, the mothers are going, no, I don't want my daughter to go to Scotland. Ah! And mothers typically want their kids to go to college across the street. Although there's no college across the street, but
right.
That's how close they want them to be. Of course, the fathers don't care. I mean, wherever you want to go, kid, I don't care. Just get out of the house, okay?
So, talking with parents and choosing the school, how do you narrow it down from the parents' perspective? So you're doing it with the kids, figuring out what they want, but how do you match with the parents?
Great question. I had the most important question I asked the parents right in the beginning, and I would say 95% of the parents don't know the answer to this question, but it's the most important answer you can come to. The question is, how much money are you willing to spend on your child's education for the next 4 years? Gee, I never really thought of that. Tell you what, you better have an answer, because one or two things are going to happen. Either you're going to take out lots of loans, and you'll probably go into your 401k and all that nonsense, which you should not do, because your retirement's more important than your child's education. Whoever told them that, right? And the other thing that will happen is that by default, you won't figure out how to do it, so you'll force your child to take out all these loans, and by the time they get out of college, they'll be at least $100,000 in debt. You know what? I think that's irresponsible for a parent to do that. And you need to do something that's different from that, like maybe you ought to call me and just have a conversation about it. Yeah.
We're in the business of tough conversations, you and I.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's good.
They're
important.
You're really tough. Keep it going.
Yeah, right. So when do you suggest that people begin this process with you?
Well, there's the people in my industry will say, you really should get your kids started in this thing, when they're in grade school. No. I usually start with students after the holidays of their sophomore year in high school. Not any earlier than that, because it's not that critical. Because everything that I do is about strategy. It's all about strategy. It's marketing. And you can start that when they're juniors in high school. Ideally, it's best that I start with kids when they're right after their sophomore, after the holidays of sophomore year, because in that period leading up to the summer, that can be totally dedicated toward career discovery, and with no distractions about the college. And the kids really get excited about that process because they're learning about themselves, things that they'd never seen or heard before, and I'm the instrument that makes that happen. So it gets me excited to do it, and the parents get really excited to do it. And I've had several parents ask me if I could do it with them.
Sure.
And of course I say, no, do it yourself.
What kinds of things do you gave us a little metaphor, your brown paper box on the conveyor belt. Yeah. You put a bow on it. That's your job.
Right.
What kind of things does that bow actually look like in real life?
Well, that's a great question, which I'm not going to answer.
Not to steal your secret sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
Or anything.
Thank you. Yes, it's my. I call it my secret sauce, and there's a page on my website called The Secret Sauce. So people click on that real fast, right? And when they keep reading, get down to the bottom, and it says, as you notice, I haven't told you what the secret sauce is because only my paying clients know what it is.
Sure.
But it comes down to marketing and relationships. That's the best way I could describe what the secret sauce is without getting into any detail.
Sure.
And that's all I'm going to say.
I'll take that. That's
okay.
Good. So you talked a little bit about financial aid, and you talked a little bit about the financial picture and addressing that with parents. And since this is such a stressful time for students and parents alike, for a whole different host of reasons, how do you help them navigate that financial piece beyond just saying, what are you willing to spend? Once they've sort of decided what they're willing to spend, how do you sort of lead them through? Do you hold their hand? Do you send them in the right direction in terms of... Let
me have your hand. I don't do this.
Except for right now.
Yeah, except for right now. I basically give them a formula to work with. In other words, it would be like going to see your doctor about a problem that you have, and he listens to everything that you have to say, and he reaches for his pen, and he writes out a prescription that he knows is going to work. And he says, now be a good, responsible adult and take this prescription, okay? And I do that. The differences between the doctor and me is that I will monitor what the student is doing to make sure everything goes according to plan. But part of that process of getting that figure that I was looking for, how much are you willing to spend? Once I have that figure, I will add like $6,000 or $10,000 to it, because colleges typically will give scholarships for whatever reasons they want to offer them for. It could be for public relations purposes. In other words, a multimillionaire could have their student applying to this college. They find out on his FAFSA form that he makes $800,000 a year, and in fairness, they use the term fairness, you would say, well, of course, that student shouldn't get any financial aid. Well, what the college is going to do is they're going to give that kid a $5,000 scholarship, and the parents can't imagine how that ever happened. He's only a B student, okay? And so what they do, of course, the college is hoping that the parent who makes a lot of money is going to have a real good positive impression about the school. He's going to be a contributor to the school, you know where that's going, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how it works. These colleges are a business. Now get over the fact that they are not institutions of higher learning anymore. Okay? Because I always like to say, especially about the Catholic colleges, and I'm a graduate of one, is, you know, they're interested in the almighty dollar, not the almighty anymore. And so, I mean, deal with that. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so when you have a third of our colleges right now that are in serious financial trouble, according to the Bain Capital Report, you got to know that what their focus is on the money. It's really all about the money. Sad, but true.
Sure. So where are you based out of?
I forget.
I know that you go everywhere.
Somewhere. Where do I come from? Oh, yes, Norfolk. I live about 3 miles in a straight line to Gillette Stadium.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, in Norfolk. So if you're looking for Gillette Stadium and you get lost, you're in Norfolk. All right.
But you move around.
Yeah, I do. I do move around. It's however whatever phone calls I get. You know, can you come out? Where are you? We're in New Jersey. Really? No kidding. Not going. We'll do this by Skype because I do a lot of work by Skype with students that I've never met, will never meet. But the parents like the way that I come across with the students, you know, on the screen. And of course, when I get off those meetings with the students, you know, the students will go to the parents and say, you know, Mr. Hemphill was a lot of fun tonight. He just really, you know, whacked me out, freaked me out, whatever. So, anyway.
And you have a pretty small base of clients that you work with at one time,
yes,
correct?
I only work with about 15 clients a year. I used to work with as many as 50, but I just decided that, and I could do 100. I mean, it's very easy. My system is really, really, really easy. And but I like to have a little bit more free time as I drift into antiquity. I'm getting old, you see.
All right, so we're getting down to our last few minutes. So I want to ask you just one last thing. What is sort of the takeaway, words of wisdom that you can offer to parents and their high school age kids about getting into college and how to alleviate the pressure?
Okay.
What is the one thing that you can tell them to help them feel less stressed?
I have no idea. Actually, I'm stunned. I mean, that question is just powerful. I just can't come up with an answer. Let me search for that. You know, one of the things that I would suggest, and this is terribly self-serving, meant to be, the parents ought to call me and have that conversation so that they can find out for themselves exactly what benefit it is to have an expert work on their behalf, whether it's with me or someone else. It doesn't matter. Find someone to guide you through the process. But I do have 2 pieces of information that I give to all my students when the parents will say to me, the last thing before they go off to college, they say, Paul, what is the last thing you would advise my student to do? 2 things. When you get to college, please do everything you can to master your communication skills. Because American business right now is frustrated with what's coming out of our colleges. They're almost at the point where they don't care what you majored in. Can you talk in a complete paragraph? How about a sentence? Okay? And the second thing I always advise, because it really worked out well for me, find yourself a mentor. In other words, when you get to college, ask the upperclassmen, who's the most inspirational teacher on this campus? And then you go to that person. And if you're majoring in biology and that person is a philosophy professor, it doesn't matter. If that person has a reputation of being inspiring, have a relationship with that person all the way through college, and it'll be the greatest asset you ever have coming out of that school. I can't believe I'm getting serious about this. Oh,
Well, Paul, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for joining us today. You've been really helpful.
Good.
And I'm sure that parents out there are really happy to know that your services exist and that they will get through it and their kids will go to college and they will be happy and successful.
Exactly.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you have kids who are about to turn 18 or already in college, you're probably aware that you will no longer have the authority to make legal, financial, and medical decisions for them. There are documents you can put in place which will allow you to act on their behalf should the need arise. So if you have any questions about today's discussion, the documents your 18-year-old should have, or about legal planning for your family, you can visit us at www.parentsesstateplanning.com, or you can call our Acton office at 978-263-6900. And for additional articles and information about the legal and financial challenges facing parents of young families, please visit www.thedadlawyer.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us next time.